Hello, everybody. It's Tanya Williams here, author of A Child-Free Happily Ever After and founder of the Childfree Choices program. And I am really happy this morning to be talking to the fabulous Therese Shechter, movie maker, writer, artist, child-free advocate, and just all-round fabulous woman. Good morning, Therese.
Good morning. Good morning. It's not morning here, but you all know that.
That's right. We have a little bit of a time difference with me being in Australia and you being in the US, but that's okay. That's what we have this technology for.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it's fabulous. So let's start with an update on the movie and what we can expect and where you're at with that.
Okay, well, we have just finished a few months of editing, which has been so great because we now have scenes, we have like actual scenes put together, which is really exciting. You can sort of feel the story, taking shape. And so that's a great feeling. So I've been working with Siobhan Dunn, who's the editor of the film, and she's amazing. And so now we're on a bit of a hiatus while I engage in the old fundraising and looking for ring board wealthy women who want to get involved in an artistic project. If you're out there, to bring more people on for funding. So that's going to be a little adventure for the next couple of months. And I'm writing. I'm actually working on a new article, which I can't talk about, but it'll be out in May. And it should be really cool. I've teamed up with Ali Schwed, who I did the Childfree comic with, so I don't know.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Knows about the comic. Childfree is a legitimate choice. It's a really awesome, basic information comic about being child-free. So Ali and I are doing.
So where's the comic available then to buy? Is that something that you know to get in the US or?
So it's not a paper comic, it's an online comic.
It's an online comic, okay.
Although I would love to turn it into a paper comic. I think.
How cool would that be? Like an old comic,
I know, would that be cool?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be really fun. It was first published online at the Nib, but and it's still there. But you can also now see it on our website. So it's there in full on the website on myselfishlife.com. So and it's a few other places. Somebody else is going to be publishing anyway. So so Ali and I together again doing more child-free propaganda for you all. So
love it. I think I'm having a lot of these conversations. Particularly at the moment, I think I've got about 5 or 6 interviews this week because I'm about to launch the Childfree Choices program, and it's really interesting having these conversations because everybody's story is different. So everyone that I've spoken to, whether they're child-free, whether they're a mum, their journey, their story is totally different from the other person. Their reasons are different. Their values are different, and it's really great to, I suppose, have these types of conversations and get insights into why people are choosing what they're choosing and why that's important to them. But just the fact that people can just come together. So, a lot of the child-free people that I'm talking to are like, I was chatting with Marsha Drew-Davis the other day. So we've done an interview and where we chat via Instagram and we share each other's content and all that sort of stuff. And she said something really lovely to me about, how what we're all doing with this is obviously we're all joining forces to, for this greater good. I can't remember the exact wording of it. It was like, oh my God, that's so lovely to be part of that. But it is, we're all working on different things, books, programs, movies, whatever they might be, but the message is very similar and there's so many fabulous women around the world now that are involved in this and bring this conversation to light, which I just think is so amazing and so exciting.
Yeah, it's great, actually. It's really nice. And I've met the nicest people since I started working on this film that are all in some way involved with this larger project. So it's been really nice. It's a whole new community and everyone's fun and
Yeah, of course. Of course, we're all fun.
We're all the fun aunties, so, of course we're fun.
Now, I wanted to...
Let me get my martini here.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have a glass of wine except for it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't think that that's probably a great start to the day. So I wanted to talk more to you today, I suppose, a bit, really sort of, I suppose, a bit more focused on an article that you recently wrote. So you recently wrote a story about how the reproductive system is holding us hostage, which I thought was really intriguing. And, I had never thought of it that way before. And so your angle for me, I thought was totally unique. But I was like, oh, you're so right. So can you share, for people who haven't read the article, a bit about what it's about to start with?
Yeah, and it was published in Self magazine, which is an American magazine. They do a series of first-person essays around sex and related health things. And I had been long wanting to do a story about basically spending 40 years trying not to get pregnant, and what that really means, physically, financially, emotionally, what that's like. And I thought it was specifically timely these days because, in the US, our reproductive rights and healthcare are constantly being challenged. We don't know what's going to happen. And this is something that has really wide-ranging effects. So I wanted to tell my own story. And so it's basically the story starts when I get my period, which I realize is actually just going to be a ticking time bomb for decades, something waiting to go off. And goes through when I start becoming sexually active and, who's going on birth, who's going to use the birth control and, who's responsible for that. And, a couple pregnancy scares, and all the side effects from being on the pill, which for me were kind of nasty, but I really liked being on the pill and I was really not into getting pregnant. So I put up with a lot of side effects for a long time. And it, goes from there. And then, the bookend to the menstruation is menopause. So when I went through menopause, it was the greatest thing that happened because I've never have to worry about being pregnant again. Yeah. And it was such a relief. And, it's interesting because obviously there are, so many people out there who are trying very hard to become pregnant and can't. And I have friends, family that have been through this, and it is a struggle and it is no fun at all. But a lot of people don't want to be pregnant, or they don't want to be pregnant at a specific time. They don't maybe want any more kids than they have, or they don't want kids yet. So I think for a lot of women, this struggle with our own reproductive system and how unruly it can be, and trying to keep it in line and not do the reproduction thing is a story I think a lot of women can relate to. So I was really happy to get to write it.
Yeah, look, I loved it. I thought, it really made me think, because I hadn't actually thought of it from the angle that you sort of wrote it from, because I'm like, yeah, I was probably the same. It was like I was on the pill for many, many years before I went, and probably about 10 years ago, around about that, I got a Marina, which I absolutely love because that stopped my period totally. So that was even better side effect. But yeah, it was that thing. I can honestly say, though, I've never taken a pregnancy test or never had a pregnancy scare. So I don't know if that's a unique thing for someone who's child-free, but when people I've seen movies where people are taking pregnancy tests and so forth. I have absolutely no idea what to do. But yeah, I'm like, am I the only person in the world that hasn't done that? It's the same as I go, I've never changed a dirty nappy. I'm quite happy that I have never done that. Not nieces, not nephews, anybody. And I have no plans to do that in the future. So there's a few things that I haven't done, which I'm quite happy that hasn't happened. But I think, as you said, so many people can relate to that struggle of if you don't want to be pregnant every month, that's really what a menstruation cycle is all about.
It is kind of. I mean, it also tells you that your body is healthy and working properly, which is, a good thing to know. But yeah, I think that anyone with a uterus basically is dealing with all of this stuff. So I have never been pregnant to my knowledge. Although, we can get pregnant and very, very early on, just, bleeded out with our periods. So who knows, honestly, but twice I had to do a pregnancy test and twice it was negative. But, you're sitting there on the toilet holding the thing.
I can imagine how scary it is.
I'm just thinking, okay, if I'm pregnant, where am I going to get my abortion? What am I going to do? I always knew that I wasn't going to, have the baby, but yeah. So anyway, I'm glad that I never was.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that
it wasn't meant to be in your life.
Apparently not.
It was, it's interesting when you spoke about, or when you wrote about the whole conversation around whose responsibility is it. Now, I've had arguments, I know, with my husband about this over the years, because I've always been the one that's taken the responsibility, because I suppose he's been, well, it's mainly your choice, even though he's been happy with it and loves our life and so forth. And I've asked him, why don't you get a vasectomy? And he's like, well, I don't want one. And I'm like, I don't know whether some of that was a fearful thing of going, well, if anything happens with us, I still have a chance to, go and have a baby if that's what my partner wants. I don't know if that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, we've often had this conversation about, well, whose responsibility is it? Shouldn't it be both our responsibilities, because we're both adults? Right. So, I mean, yeah, I'd like to, I suppose, talk a bit more about that particular point. Whose responsibility do you think it is when you're in I suppose not just only if you're in a relationship, but if you're not in a relationship and it's a one-night stand, like, surely there's got to be responsibility from both parties.
Right. It's tough because we're the ones who get pregnant. So ultimately, we need to be sure that
much bigger consequences for us.
Our consequences are much more dire, and that kind of, it's not fair, because it sort of tips the psychological, burdens. But, it's interesting because when I became sexually active, I went on the pill. And this was also at a time where we were still, dealing with a lot of AIDS. And I wanted my partners who were male, to wear a condom. Yep. It was very, very hard to convince guys to put on a condom. I can't tell you all the song and dance sob stories that I would get about, putting on a condom. And I was pretty strict about it. Honestly, I really wouldn't, give in. But it was always like a big deal. Yeah. Around when I was close to 40, the side effects for being on the pill got really bad, and I really just, had to go off of them. And I actually felt quite liberated once I did, because I thought, I don't have to take this little hormone pill every morning. I realized that I had been so attached to these pills, I had to take them every day at the same time. So I went off the pill, and I decided, well, it's not my problem anymore. So that was it. I was like, I'm done. I'm done being responsible for this. Yeah. And it's interesting because when you're with a fella, whether it's a long-term relationship or especially not a long-term relationship, once you say, oh, I'm not on any birth control, so you're going to have to deal with that. Right on. Just like that. That's
so typical of you, right?
Wrap that thing up. So that was quite a lesson, actually. Yeah.
I think a lot of the time I feel like a lot of the time men assume that you're taking care of it. It's like, and even if, a lot of the time you haven't had that conversation, it's just like, well, aren't you, on the pill, or aren't you? And it's just like, why do you assume that it has to be me? So I think there's a big assumption by most men that we're just, if we don't want them, then we're doing what we need to do.
Well, we're just doing all the work, like we usually do all the work.
We always do.
Sometimes if there are things you can do that don't make babies. So that you don't have a condom, like it's not like you pack it up and go home. But it was definitely less of a conversation. Yeah. To convince someone. But I mean, I don't want to paint all guys with the same brush. There were guys that were, very willing to wear condoms, very aware of their responsibilities. But there's this conversation where, if you're in a long-term relationship and you are on birth control pills, for example, I think it would be nice if you split the cost with your partner, because it's benefiting both of you.
Yeah.
And you're just the one that has to take them. But birth control pills can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
And, a good partner will split the cost with you. It's only fair, really. But this is a reasonably new concept for some people. But just because I'm taking the pills doesn't mean it's all my problem. It's not all my problem.
That's true. And you know what? There's a lot of men now that don't want to have children as well. So I've read stories and heard stories of women who have deliberately gotten pregnant on purpose without their partner's knowledge, or knowing that their partner doesn't want a baby because they do, and tricking men, which I just think is just such a horrible thing. Like I don't understand how anyone could bring a child into the world in those circumstances. But I don't want to be judgmental about it. But I just think that's really unfair of women to do that. But I think at the same time, if men don't want that to happen, then they have to step up and take some responsibility for that as well. To go, well, perhaps if you took some responsibility, it also wouldn't have happened either. So there's two in this situation that you're both as much to blame, really.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If a guy doesn't want to have children, then he needs to be as responsible about birth control as women have to be all the time. And I will say that there is this reproductive coercion that happens the other way too. Men will sabotage women's birth control, or somehow sabotage their condom or something, to try to get their partners pregnant. So it really works both ways, and it's a control issue, But yeah, I think that men who are unhappy that their partner is pregnant really should have taken a lot more responsibility on their end. If it was something they didn't want. It's not out of their control, So,
Exactly. It takes two for that to happen. I'm seeing a lot of things coming up, particularly on my Facebook feed, actually, around stuff that's happening in the US at the moment around making abortion illegal, and a lot of people against the pro-choice movement. I mean, I've always been pro-choice. One of the things that makes me really, really angry is how can an old white male make a law about something that will never impact his life and only impacts, women, for a start. But I don't know what's happening in the US at the moment where this is such a big topic of conversation. I'm seeing all these news feeds and all this stuff coming up everywhere about it.
Well, let me just say that the old white men making laws, it will impact their lives, because sometimes they have mistresses who get pregnant, and don't you know they get abortions for them?
Oh, that's nice and hypocritical of them.
Yeah, I mean, there have been several incidents of that, and
wow.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah.
The majority of Americans support a woman's right to choose whether she has an abortion or not. So we have a majority of people who are pro-choice, who support that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it sometimes, but that's the way it is. I think that we have a very conservative government right now, and that's part of it. And our very conservative president, who does all the bidding for the Republican Party, which is an anti-choice party. It's one of their big platforms. Has nominated people to the Supreme Court that are anti-choice. It's like red meat, it's like, yeah, give us more of that, So that's been a real problem. I think if Hillary Clinton had been elected president, we would be having a somewhat different conversation. But, it's a complicated issue, honestly, about how even language has been used to push one idea or another. I think a lot of people don't even understand what an abortion entails. I don't even know what they think it is, but it's something they're picturing that's like this horrific experience, and it's not. But because people don't actually know what it is and don't want to know, there's a lot of misinformation. But I mean, this is just a small part of it. But we are talking about, what happens if Roe v. Wade, which was the law that made abortion legal federally, was passed, if that gets overturned. But the other thing that's important to know about the United States is that even though abortion is legal, technically legal everywhere, access is not available to a lot of people. So it may be legal, but it's not available, especially if you're a lower income person. In some states, there's one abortion clinic for the entire state.
Wow, really?
Mississippi, for example, there's one abortion clinic. And these abortion clinics have been disappearing for various reasons. And some of it is because there have been laws passed that create situations that are impossible to fulfill. You know, how wide a hallway has to be, or doctors need admitting privileges in the local hospital, things that are completely unrelated to the procedures that make no sense. But it's like throwing rocks on the road, you know, so you can't drive through very easily. And this has been an ongoing thing with Republican legislatures. So clinics have been closing because they can't afford to make these changes to meet these nonsensical laws. Also because it's very dangerous to be an abortion provider these days. You know, there aren't enough doctors to serve all the people that need abortions. And, you know, if you're a low-income person with maybe a minimum wage job and you have to travel somewhere, there are waiting periods. You have to get maybe to another state. You have to stay overnight. You may not be able to get the time off from work. You may not be able to afford even the transportation or a hotel. There are just so many roadblocks in the way. So really, you know, in New York State, you know, people come to New York State because we have a slightly better situation. But in the vast majority of counties in the United States, you can't get an abortion. Even if it's legal, you can't, because of all of these roadblocks and things. So,
wow, I had no idea that was the case. I just assumed that because it was legal that there was places that you go and take care of it. Like I had no idea that was actually the situation.
There are places, but in many parts of the country, they're very few and far between. And again, lower income women are disproportionately impacted because it's expensive and it costs money to get to the place that will do what you need. And if you are trying to get the money together or trying to figure out how to do this in your first trimester, there's a chance it's going to take you so long that you will now be in your second trimester, which means there are going to be less places that do second trimester abortions. So it becomes even more difficult and more expensive. So it's really, I think I think people need to understand what the situation is. And really, when you come down to it, that's saying is that if you are able to get pregnant and you get pregnant and you don't want to be pregnant, the choices you can make in your life are not yours. Other people are now going to decide what happens with your life because you are not able to make those decisions and you're not able to live in a way that you want to live.
I think one of the things that these anti-abortionists don't understand is the impact and the cost that bringing that unwanted child into society actually costs society. So if that goes into the system, in terms of, you know, it gets, you know, goes into whether it's foster care or you know, orphanages or, you know, and I don't know what the system's like over there, but, you know, the costs of that on taxpayers, the burden on society, the psychological and mental impacts on the woman, the child, you know, anyone else that's around that. Like, it has an impact on so many people that I just wonder if they even stop to consider any of that. If they're just so, no, it's wrong. It's, you know,
they don't really care
about the flow-on effect of that.
The thing about the antis, as we call them, it's not just about abortion. It's about controlling women's bodies and women's sexuality. They also don't believe in contraception. They just can't say that because there's going to, you know, be a riot. but they
Yeah,
don't
so
even
that's
want women
big hypocritic contraception. Yeah, okay.
yeah. I mean, a few people have said it out loud, but they can't, right? Because
It's like stepping back 300 years in time and going, this is what it used to be like 200 or 300 years ago. Like, do they realize that it's 2019? Like, I don't, yeah.
No, they don't care. They have a really specific idea of women's roles and how women should be living their lives. And they have not too much concern for poor women of color, just not something they really want to deal with. I mean, it's you know, Tanya, it's really complicated. Like people have written really long books, good books about this. But it's just a very complicated thing. But I think when you get down to it, antis who really, that this is all grown out of the Republican Party, they just don't really want women to have control over their own bodies and their lives. It kind of comes down to that.
Yeah,
honestly.
and you know what? I think there's certainly not alone when you look at some of the cultures in the world. I've just started watching these TV shows on Netflix called Daughters of Destiny. I don't know if you've heard of it, and they're basically there's this school and set up in India. It's called Banti Shavan. And there's one girl out of the family can come, and they basically take them from when they're young and they stay there until they're 16 years old. They give them an education. They teach them about Western world, but they still have the culture and stuff. And so many of the girls have these stories of saying, well, yes, when I'm 12 years old, my parents said I had to marry my uncle, and and these types of situations now. And but the thing is, it's the education. They don't know any different until someone else comes and tells them, actually, this is how it is, and you do have a choice, and this is what it can look like. But they sort of go, they've always just done what culture and society tells them to do. And some of the girls tell the story of these two different lives, one in this where they're basically growing up in this school, and when they come out and their life is so different and what's expected of them is so different, and what society tells them. Like one girl was saying she got into trouble for even having a friendship with a boy, and they were purely platonic friends, but that's unacceptable, so they moved away. It was just like, oh my God. And again, it comes back down to this control and the control of what women were doing in society. Like, I'm just sitting there watching this, and I get really angry and emotional watching. My husband's like, what are you yelling at? I'm like, I'm yelling at the TV. These people are making me so mad. Because I suppose I can't understand that, I suppose, because I've always been lucky to have that choice and the voice. And it makes me really sad when I see women around the world that don't have that, or don't even know that they can have that. And that because again, it's just about putting women in their place, and you can't have a choice, you can't have a voice. You just go and do what you're told to do, and that's it. And I don't know how we change that from a world perspective when some of this is so ingrained culturally in some of these countries. Will it ever change?
I think it's moving in the right direction. I think that the situation is better than it used to be. I mean, it seems like an overwhelming thing, but I think all we can do is keep working towards the things that we think are important and supporting people who are doing work that we think is important. And because the alternative is, nothing happens. So I mean, the world sucks sometimes, especially for women. But I do think it's getting better. It's going in the right direction. Education is so important. We also know that the more educated a woman is, the less children she has. And
I think that's part of the problem. I think that's what a lot of these controlling men are worried about is, if, oh my God, if she has an education, she'll see that she has choices, and she'll see that there are other options, and we don't want that. So let's not educate them, because that solves the problem for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In the same way I was just saying that most people have no idea what an abortion entails and how it's a very quick and safe process, and there's a lot of really, really bad fake science around it. So I have to say the antis are very good at what they do. They really are. They have really taken
propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, they have. They're good at it. People are squeamish, you know, so you can't really have these conversations that you want to have. But you know, the thinking right now is that, you know, if the Supreme Court justice hears a case to, you know, overturn Roe v. Wade, which is, you know, legal abortion, they're not going to do it before the 2020 presidential elections, because again, having this issue out there is like red meat to Republican voters, or many of them. So they're going to keep it floating out there until after the election.
And I think because there are so many people against it as well, I mean, that's going to be a pretty hot issue. Yeah, don't even start me on the politics in your country.
But as I said, the majority of Americans support a woman's right to choose. They just do.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're actually in the majority, but you know, the way power is distributed, it's tricky.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is something that Americans actually support.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely to chat again. I'm looking forward to. So when is the new article that you cannot speak about coming out, so we can look out for it?
It's coming out in May.
Okay. You don't have too long to wait then.
It's not. Yeah, I have a deadline actually. Yeah, it's coming out in May. And can I plug the Selfish Selfie series?
Yes, please do. Please do.
All right. So some of you may know that we, in conjunction with the film, we've been running a series of 60-second videos. Tanya did one, which was awesome. 60-second videos just created by our audience with their cell phones, talking about their experiences around child-free issues. And they're really fantastic. There's a woman who was like attacked by someone at a cake decorating class and told she's going to die alone.
Oh my God.
You know, there's a guy, actually he's from Zimbabwe, and he talks about, you know, how he's planning to get a vasectomy. Great.
Wow.
We have a couple in Toronto who are teachers and decided because of environmental reasons they're not going to have kids. There are a lot of really cool stories, and now we are ready for our second round. So we would love to get something from every single person watching this.
Yay. Okay. I did share this on the Facebook page the other day, but I'm going to share it. I'm going to keep sharing because I love the idea of the 60-second selfie and the selfish selfie.
I like 60-second selfies, and that's good. Yeah. So there are instructions on how to do it on the website. It's very casual. You're basically holding up your phone, horizontally though, and telling your story, and we'll edit it down to a minute. And they've been so fantastic. They're all on the website if people want to see them. But anyway, we're now doing the second round. So please send something in.
Yes.
It might end up in our film.
There you go. And you know, and we know that my so-called, I can't even speak now, my so-called selfish life hopefully will be coming out, fingers crossed, by the end of the year, if things go well, hopefully. But yeah, guys, you know, we need your support to get this film up and out there, because this message needs to be told across the world. And yeah, and I look forward to catching up with you when I'm in New York in August.
Yes.
A bit more on that to come, people. We might have some news to share with you on that. But as always, lovely to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Love what you're doing. And let's keep this ball rolling and keep this message out there so we can get this film out in the world.
Lovely. Thanks everybody for listening, watching. Thanks Tanya.
Therese. Bye.